Hi, I'm Justin.
Also, I hate the way my voice sounds, so if you can do whatever Photoshop does to voices, make me sound awesome.
And this is my lovely friend,
The beauty in the eyes of the beholder, and it's just about getting into the seat of being the beholder.
Hayley.
I don't think you have to be particularly perceptive. I just think you have to look up.
This podcast is mostly just her telling me stories.
If you expose yourself to the possibility that this might be really awkward, there can be something just really cool on the other side of it.
She thinks that her life and way of looking at things are
Oh, I was kind of waiting on you. I thought you were getting your stuff ready. You're waiting on me?
pretty normal.
You got to edit out all the misinformation about the Amish.
Maybe you can relate.
I would like a chance to re-sing the Amish Paradise.
If you want lighthearted stories
All right, you want to talk about goats?
and stream of consciousness,
I just woke up and needed some friends, and so I bought them.
then you're gonna like the Sunny Side Up podcast.
Sunny side up, sunny side up, sunny side up, sunny side up.
So, if you're at all like me, you may feel that you're living in a world that can be a bit overwhelming and confusing at times. I'm also a huge fan of podcasts, documentaries, docudramas, stories, and of just information in general. Between all of that and the social media and news, sometimes our brains can feel like they're on overload. Hayley and I hope that this podcast can be something of an antidote to all of that. Like little jello shots of joy and distraction. None of it is too serious or really too informative. Mostly it's just two friends who have conversational chemistry talking about whatever enters the minds of relatively ADHD people. We hope you enjoy.
And in the same time, the Eras Tour, the Taylor Swift thing is going on in the background, and I'm hearing all the kids excited about that and saying, even if you don't like Taylor Swift, you're noticing what's happening. And they're talking about her being a generational talent. Not just a generational talent, because she's now breaking the records that Elvis held. And then you're like, well, I think this chick could go toe-to-toe with the Beatles and all the firsts because of the genres that she's crossing and the records that she's selling, but also just the business models and the things. And I'm like, wait a second. She's y'all's generation. She's closer to my age than theirs, but her first album comes out when these kids are 5 to 10 years old, and she was a lot of their first CD that they got. And my niece says, I remember getting that first CD, and it was in my CD player while I get a shower singing my heart out.
Help me out. What year was that first one?
Early 2000s.
Early 2000s. Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
The early aughts.
The early
aughts.
Yeah.
Mid aughts. I think it would have been mid aughts, but
Okay.
They're listening to her first album, and then about the time these kids are getting to junior high age, they see Taylor Swift on stage at an awards show and Kanye West snatching a trophy out of her hand and doing, acting like a donkey there, and how she handles that, which is really relatable to any kid in junior high who's probably navigating the same things. And then, as she goes into her career and people are mistreating her and selling her masters to her enemies, and she's having to figure out how to help that situation and reshape it, and using her skills to overcome. I'm like, hey, there's a lot of positive in this.
Yeah.
So while everything else in your life was unprecedented and bad, you've also had something unprecedented that's kind of fantastic.
And
let's
sort
shine
of
a light on that.
A good over evil triumph from what you're telling me.
This is a healthy role model, even if you don't like her music. She's a decent story to follow and to see what's going on. And I was like, so how about if with this generation, this could be, the school does a symposium. They used to do an honor symposium, I think once a year until COVID kind of knocked it out. And they haven't picked it up since then just because everything is barely getting back to normal. Yeah. But in the past, it was things like creation versus science, and they would get two experts and kind of debate it out, and the churches would bust people in, and it was a big deal. And one year they had the hometown TV show people, because they were alumni from the school, and they would come and do a talk. So the topic can be anything.
Gotcha.
And I just thought, with this generation, since they are the Taylor Swift era,
Yeah.
growing up with her career,
So what? Okay,
let's make it fun, and let's focus on something good that's happening.
Which I love.
Won't that be fun?
That is really cool.
It's
Now
really
that I
long
understand
spiel.
where you're going with the Taylor Swift symposium, so it's really
I need to narrow down that marketing. That's going to be a lot to put on a poster.
right.
This is the longest podcast ever. Please splice this out. This is just me telling you about my idea.
I love it.
So I mentioned it, at the
And are you going to have two sides to it? Like, is there going to be like a pro or?
There's no con
There
to
is no
Taylor
con to
Swift.
it. Yeah,
That's
so,
ridiculous.
So it's ridiculous. It's really just it feels like what you're trying to do is extract from this mega superstar's sort of journey of challenge and trial, like the life lessons that we can sort of pull into our own little world. Is that kind of, is that sort of it?
On one really well caffeinated evening, I had some great insights and had some good ideas. And I also have a sister-in-law who's really, really brilliant, but a lifetime Swiftie. But she's super creative, and she had some good ideas too. Do you want to hear some?
I would like to hear some.
All right, let me find it. It's in my phone. I had a list. But I mentioned this at the I don't even remember what it was, campus chili cook-off or something, and we're sitting around, and I mentioned it to I was like, this is our year, we need to do this, and he was like, why would we do Taylor Swift? I don't even know. He just knew nothing about her, and I was like, I'm telling you, dude.
I'm telling you.
The friendship bracelets, she revitalized the craft industry.
Well, there is this weird divide, by the way, I think, and it may cross race, I'm sure it probably does, but for sure, white guys in their 40s like myself end up, I don't think we know. Obviously, we're aware of Taylor Swift in the sense of, like, you're aware that the Himalayas are a massive, like, mountain range.
Full of Yetis.
Full of Yetis, exactly. I don't know that we don't understand her. We don't get we just don't understand what the hype is exactly. And again, not even like violently opposed. Just like she's flying in a different orbit. Deal? Right? Yeah, she's in a different orbit. I think is the safest.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think that's what we would. One of the things, we're not out there to sell her music through our symposium. Right. What we'd like to say is, here's some cool things about her life or her business acumen or whatever that. Could translate into teachable lessons for our students. The old Taylor can't come to the phone right now, semicolon, the reinventions of Taylor Swift, because she crosses genres and each of the eras is a different thing. So how she's able to continually stay a step ahead, because she realized country music, you age out of it, and they told her you can't do pop. And she's like, oh yeah, watch me. And now she's even done like the folkier side and everything. She's like, so that was pretty clever. That was from my sister-in-law. Long Live, a predictive analysis of Taylor Swift's historical legacy.
Ooh, interesting.
And we could look at, like, who were some of the landmark pop icons.
So basically, does she have staying power
landscape.
like the Elvises, the Beatles, the Michael Jacksons, whatever? Okay.
Just looking at legacy in general. And a sociologist would probably, the sociology teacher could speak on that for 4 or 5 minutes. And The Man, a swift look at Taylor as a feminist. Ooh. Another sociology perspective here, but I would like to know from a sociology perspective, like, what brand of feminism is this? Does she doesn't fit into the typical box, but she also definitely fits into the typical box.
But what's so that's its own little
we could talk for a long time about that. Right? It's a good topic,
there's first, second, and then third wave feminism. And now I want to give credit to women. I want to say we're in fourth wave, although I don't know if that is just something I'm making up.
I know nothing about it from an academic standpoint. I don't know about the waves.
I think first wave was like, let us vote.
1920.
That's like the earliest. Oh, it has to be earlier than that, right?
I'm just saying that's when we actually got the right to vote.
Was it? Okay.
Federally,
so that's first wave.
That was whenever we got the 19th Amendment. Wyoming was letting women vote from the beginning, I believe. Well, they only have a population of 600,000 now. If they're going to have a jury of 12 members or however many, they get all hands on deck. All of you register. Bring your livestock.
Right.
Everyone gets a vote.
Yes, yeah. You had like first wave was like stuff that everybody should be behind, like women voting. I think second wave was like pushing for like equality before the law and like being able to own real estate.
We're still there then.
Yeah, no. We've accomplished that. Don't get me started.
We could not open our own checking accounts in the 1960s without our husband signing off on it. We couldn't have our own credit cards in the 1970s. When you were born, your mama couldn't have her own credit card.
I'm going to look that up. That seems crazy, but
look
I know.
I know.
Help
me write my symposium.
It's crazy. Then third wave was. So I think first and second wave of feminism is like the stuff that's the no-brainer stuff of like, this is just to live in a modern society. This is the no-brainer stuff. Everybody's behind it.
To live in a cave, it should have been no-brainer stuff. It's really weird how long it took us to get there.
Before you go there, there is this idea that the more primitive women, and not even primitive like cave we're thinking, but like in
like the 1700s, 1700s, right? As like Europe is starting to become this whole thing, women actually enjoyed this really kind of amazing balance of getting to be revered, protected, and taken care of in sort of the best case scenarios in Western society. They were like pedestaled, and the things that they weren't quote unquote allowed to do, most of them were like, oh, thank you, I don't have to shovel poop or something. It would have been like they would have had no interest in it for the most part. And so there is like this dichotomous thing of like, depending on how you look at it, the whole thing that was driving men to build the big buildings and do all the stuff was actually to like impress their women, keep them happy, and protect them. And so there was a symbiotic relationship. Anyways, I do think there came that point where it was like, all right, this is no longer going to work for all the reasons. So anyways, first and second wave feminism, we're all on board. Third wave feminism is when they were like, men are garbage, we don't need them.
Yeah, that's like the angry feminism.
That's the angry feminism. That was third wave.
And I'm afraid that's what people think of when they hear feminism.
I think so like, too, which is not fair.
Yeah, we don't have to be there.
No, and that's why I think the fourth wave, to kind of round this out, and then I'd be interested to hear from your symposium where you think T Swift is at. I think fourth wave feminism has actually pissed off the third wavers because they're like, hey, if I want to stay home and raise my kid and have my husband / significant other go out and work because that's what
yes,
right.
That's a feminist
that's my
choice.
Right.
That's right.
And now they're having to fight a little bit of the third wavers who were like, we fought and burned our bras
so that you don't have to.
So you don't have to. They're like, but we choose to, and that's the whole thing with freedom, right? It's like, which, by the way, since I'm on this thing,
stay on that soapbox.
Stay on it. It's really fun. I think it was Jordan Peterson, but somebody was in a debate. It was a really fascinating debate with a strong feminist, and pointed out that in one of the Scandinavian countries, don't remember which one it is, but it's considered the most egalitarian country in the world. It's like 54% of all of the governmental leadership is female.
Oh.
Right. And so they went through all these lengths, and I don't remember, it's Finland, Norway, you got to excuse my ignorance, whichever one it was, one of those, right? I
bet it's Norway.
It could be. They did all of this work to make sure women would have like equal access to like the STEM fields.
Yeah.
And what they found was once they made it perfectly level in a self-selecting way, women actually were like, okay, I see that's an option, that's cool, but I can actually make more money being smart and understanding that field, but going into a part of the STEM world where having like communication skills and interpersonal skills is really important.
Sure.
And leaving like the, finger sucking, Coke bottle glass guys who are like the freak geniuses to actually do
like a left brain, right brain sort of natural.
And it was totally self-selecting. And it's like, anyway, so there is some of that's sort of like the third wavers will continue to like kind of bash on how we're sort of naturally wired differently as male and female. And I think that's not totally fair. I mean, it's not fair if you're forced, but it is really fascinating how we just sort of like drift to our natural areas of strengths. So anyways, that's my whole thing. I would really be interested if she's like fourth wave, T Swift, I'd be interested to hear her like thoughts and all that. But
I would too. And also I love that the example that what Parliament was doing there and giving the rights that it's Scandinavian, because I want to say that Viking culture was very empowering. Like their women were empowered and could do more a lot of things. Yeah. And I think like the women knew a lot of math and they thought that was like witchcraft, which I still feel like it's maybe demonic.
Still borderline.
Math ain't my thing either, but if you can do it, that's amazing. It is a superpower.
For sure.
But I like that they have a history of revering their women and they're still continuing.
Hello, lovely friends. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And it would mean the world if you would tell other people about this podcast and maybe even spam your social media accounts with just how much you're enjoying it. If you are, of course. Also, commenting and rating us on whatever platform you're downloading or streaming from is incredibly helpful to a little startup podcast like this one. On the other hand, if you are dissatisfied with your listening experience, please leave all of that hate on someone else's podcast. Just maybe to confuse them a little bit, right? But most of all, we hope you keep looking up and looking for the sunny side of life.